when I meet with students, one of the questions they ask is the work experience and how does it work when I finish my course? Now, students as part of our program, as part of the Certificate 3, are required to undertake 400 work experience hours. And what we mean by work experience is that they're out there working in industry, getting exposure to what it's like to be on a work site in the construction industry in their particular chosen field. Now, the idea of work experience is that you are working for somebody who has knowledge, has experience in the trade. When we talk about that, we talk about qualified painters as a good example. Now, it's a requirement for students once they complete their course to move or to apply to an organisation called Trades Recognition Australia, or TRA. Now, of course, Trades Recognition Australia, or TRA, are the experts on TRA, but we have learnt a lot in this process and been able to gather a lot of information that's quite useful to students. Always very cautious to give advice about those things, but what I've learnt is that you can work either paid or unpaid, and TRA doesn't really mind which way you go, as long as you are gaining that experience. TRA like to know that you've gained your experience working with somebody who's qualified, and that those hours have got evidence. And that's where it becomes a bit tricky for students, working out what the type of evidence that you would need. And I simplify that a little bit. In an unpaid situation, the student must come to talk to me, and together we work an agreement. We put together an agreement with the employer, with me and the students, and therefore we're able to track what's called vocational placement. The student engages in a contractual situation of unpaid work, and we keep a logbook of that, and at the end of that process I write a statement. That statement we're able to present to TRA of the unpaid work. Many students want to move to a paid situation, and how that works really depends on the employer and the student and your experience. So an opportunity to gain unpaid work when I don't have any experience is a really great strategy. But I want to work hard, I want to prove to my employer that I'm a good worker, and that would then allow me the opportunity to work in a paid situation. Once a student moves into that paid work situation, they are responsible for the evidence. And the evidence comes in the form of either a pay slip or a timesheet. If they're on an ABN or working as a contractor, they need to gather invoices, bank statements, and all that information is available on the TRA website. They call it the Job Ready program. And if you go to TRA, search the Job Ready program, you'll be able to look at the guidelines in there. And often agents have a lot of information. Your migration agent or migration lawyer can also provide some guidance there. So, in very simple terms, if you haven't had experience, or you just want to get into your hours, and an unpaid situation is a great way to go to an employer and say, I can work for free, I can work for nothing, I can gather my hours, I can arrange or get an agreement in place with Tony, with Academic, and we put that in place, and then I can go and do unpaid hours and they count. Then as I'm working or I'm gaining that experience, I want to transition to getting some paid hours. Then in that situation, you are responsible to gather the evidence. That means that if you are an ABN, you're a contractor, you're sending invoices to the employer. Hopefully the employer is a qualified painter. That would generate the supervision requirements, and you're able to present bank statements, and that evidence will be what you bring together and present to TRA at the end of your journey. If you're an employee, your pay slips, your timesheets. And ultimately, you will be presenting evidence to TRA that allows them to look at your situation and be overwhelmed by the evidence. That they say, oh, I can see how this student was able to gain experience, gain exposure to the industry. So TRA is ultimately the expert, but we've learnt a lot, and we can give you great information to assist you to understand what the best path is. In addition, students often ask, how many hours can I work as a painter? And these questions, obviously we can't give advice. We are the experts on the Certificate 3, and we're here to teach you or give you the skills to be able to do the course that you are learning. So if you're a Certificate 3 painting and decorating student, when you walk out our doors, you'll be able to paint. But in terms of understanding how many hours I can do, I'm a student, your migration lawyer, your migration agent is the expert, and we will always encourage you to speak to your migration agent, your migration lawyer, to ensure that you get the right information. My understanding is students can work 40 hours a fortnight, and there are some rules around that as well. My understanding is also that students who do work related to their studies, for example, if you're a painting student and you do some painting hours, then those hours may not actually be counted as part of your 40. So every student's journey is slightly different, and your circumstances may be different to the person next to you. So as I always say, get the advice of your migration lawyer or your migration agent.